Welcome back, NoDQ Galaxy, to a brand new edition of the NoDQ review number 181. Hey, Aaron Riff, did Jim Johnston do that intro theme song? It sounded like something from the 90s from Jim Johnston. I love it. What's up, gentlemen?
What's going on?
I like the new intro.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
I wasn't expecting it. It was nice. It was a good surprise.
Is that the first time?
Yep. Brand new intro. We had to have it updated because the old one still had the old school Roman Reigns on it. We had it for about 2 years. Figured it was time to change it up a little bit, get some new graphics up with CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and so on and so forth.
Props.
Well, here we are, and for some reason it's not logged. I don't see the chat, so if there's anything interesting, you guys will have to let me know what's being said. Or Aaron,
I'm not seeing anything either. Is there an issue with the chat tonight?
But it's going to be my thing. So I'm going to go around the horn while Aaron. Hey, there it is. I see something now. Jargo, welcome back. You took last week off. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but you are here tonight before WrestleMania weekend. What's up?
I saw the topics come in, and I was like, "Oh, damn! I can actually do this tonight. Let's sit down. Let's talk some pro wrestling." I haven't gotten to watch a whole lot. I haven't gotten to discuss with anybody, so I'm just like I'm pent up with rage virtue. I can't wait, man. This is going to be awesome. WrestleMania season upon us. Let's go.
You know what I like about this show, and shout out to anybody else who's been on this. Colin, Andrew, obviously shout out every week. But Robbie and Jargo, they're like virtue guys. They're guys I brought into NoDQ to be on the review. So like I feel like this is the virtue army panel. I love it. Robbie, what's up? 2 weeks in a row, you passed the poll on Twitter, and it looks like they are in favor of you returning.
60-40, baby.
So it was actually shocking that I found out I was the most popular panelist ever on NoDQ. I was the most beloved. It's just something I didn't see coming. Now, I cannot match the rage that Jargo is bringing tonight. I am still heavily medicated, dealing with an ankle injury. But I'm sure as hell probably going to still be a smart ass, and I'm sure I'm going to say things that's going to make someone upset. But
that's why you're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, guys. So yeah, man, let's get rolling. It's WrestleMania season. This is literally the most exciting time of year for anyone that enjoys professional wrestling.
It is. Now, do you have a hard 9 o'clock exit? If you do, that's fine.
I have like 9 to 9:05 that I'll have to get out of here.
But I mean, I want to be done by then anyway.
Yeah.
So last week worked out well. All right, Aaron, what's going on before we get started here?
Been busy, as you might expect, with WrestleMania just a few days away. I've been doing live streaming now for over a week straight with no days off. Just keep on grinding. We got WrestleMania this weekend. Some interesting rumors heading into the weekend. And apparently somebody spotted Cody Rhodes at the hotel. But you always hear this stuff. You always hear, oh, so-and-so was at the airport. So-and-so was at the hotel. And it's hard to believe what you read. You just have to wait and see what happens as it plays out on TV. We'll see who ends up being the opponent for Seth freaking Rollins. Rollins has been tweeting all these images of various wrestlers, including Marco Stunt. What do you think about that, Robbie? Your favorite, Marco Stunt.
Hey, he's back on the indies being seen by dozens of people where he belongs. I'm fine with it.
Ouch.
Still want to see. I want to see Hornswoggle.
Hey, Tito.
Of all the potential matchups, I want to see Hornswoggle. After Seth Rollins showed up on the Jimmy Fallon show and he curb stomped a leprechaun, it is only logical that that's leading to Hornswoggle versus Seth freaking Rollins at WrestleMania.
We'll find out. We're going to talk about, obviously, one of those potential rumors and tweets that Seth Rollins did later in the show. And I'll tell you what, boy, a lot's have changed since Royal Rumble if those rumors are indeed true. And my cliffhanger is Shane McMahon never left. He's a McMahon, but stay tuned. We will be talking about that later this evening. Let's get started. First topic, gentlemen. The Steiner Brothers are going to be in Vince McMahon's WWE Hall of Fame. Now, the interesting thing is it's the Steiner Brothers. That means Rick and Scott will both be inducted. And does Scott have a microphone? How is WWE going to control this? Jargo. Like, I want to see this. Like, can they possibly control this? Or are they just going to say, this is what it is. People will tune in. They're going to want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, people will tune in to hear what Big Papa Pump is going to say. That's for sure. I feel like this is actually a really, really big moment for Braun Breaker, because Braun Breaker, I assume, is going to be the one that inducts the Steiners into the Hall of Fame. So kind of getting him in front of that audience. I'm interested to see how that plays and how he delivers that induction speech. You can't really hope to contain Scott Steiner if you put him in front of a live microphone. You can try to cut him off, but you know, it's Big Papa Pump. He's liable to throw the whole damn podium at somebody. So I mean, it'll be entertaining if nothing else. Hopefully we get some Steiner math, and hopefully Braun Breaker doesn't embarrass himself. I mean, that's really what I'm looking forward to as far as the Steiners go. I don't even know how long they'll give the Steiners. I mean, because they are not the main event act here. I mean, this could be like a 10-minute process between the induction speech and then, you know, the Steiners themselves speaking. Maybe they just try to drive it a little bit more towards Rick and a little bit less towards Scott.
Well, we're going to find out. And Aaron, is that actually airing? Are we able to see this? Is it all going to be like jammed into 1 hour?
It's 90 minutes. It's on Peacock after SmackDown.
Okay. Well, 90 minutes. I mean, do the math. Robbie, what do you think about this? I mean, the Steiners were a great tag team. Like that.
The Steiners
had their, you know, Scott became the bigger star singles, but they were one of the best tag teams of all time.
Don't like me, bite me. Wasn't that one that is saying there for a while? Dude, the Steiners absolutely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I remember growing up, I don't know why, I always felt like those Road Wild pay-per-views were made for the Steiner brothers. They just looked like they really fit in that type of atmosphere. So many stories about how gritty and tough they are. No one would really mess with them in the locker room then. So I think that's great. I can't wait to see Scott Steiner with a live mic. I really expect some off-the-cuff comments. And who would have known after all these years, Scott Steiner was 100% right about Ric Flair.
That's magic.
Yeah.
Well, they know more than anyone else. They're the ones that travel with them and they're backstage. And
some of the best WCW clips is just rants on Ric Flair by Scott Steiner.
Remember those days. Aaron.
I'm stoked for this. Big fan of the Steiners going back many years, and it'll be interesting to see what Scott Steiner has to say, but I have a feeling he'll behave himself. Really, I think the only reason he agreed to do it is because of his nephew, Braun Breaker. I think he wants to make sure his nephew doesn't have his push sabotaged, and Scott Steiner is going to play nice with WWE for this one night, maybe two. I did mention this during the predictions video for Stand and Deliver. Maybe we'll see the Steiners come to the aid of Braun Breaker. When you have Robert Roode out there trying to interfere, you'll have the Steiners jump the barricade, and maybe Scott Steiner will put the Steiner recliner on one Robert Roode, and then at the end of the match, they can raise the hands of Braun Breaker and give him the rub as the new NXT champion. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, really cool that the Steiners are going in. I don't expect them to have a very long speech. I think it might go 10 minutes tops. I mean, I think it's best to keep their speeches short. You know, both of those guys could end up stumbling on their words a lot and they might start rambling. I think it's best to just let them do their catchphrases and maybe tell a few quick stories and then move on. But just to have Scott Steiner out there back on a WWE broadcast is pretty cool after they had actually banned him from the Hall of Fame several years ago. He's in it now.
Aaron, you want to see the Steiner recliner. I want to see a Frankensteiner or the Screwdriver come back. I don't know if it's safe to have Scott Steiner do that move.
Exactly.
But dude, I'm down. Let's see it. Let's do it.
All Scott needs is 60 to 90 seconds on the mic. That's all we need. We'll get a gem out of that.
I mean, really all he needs is the Big Papa Pump is your hookup, holler if you hear me sort of thing.
I guess that's the question, is who shows up? Does Scott Steiner show up or does Big Papa Pump show up?
Yeah, the owner of Shoney's, or are we going to get Big Papa Pump?
Right.
I think it's the same guy, but we'll see. Hey, he's there for the payday too. Don't forget, these guys get paid. Vince McMahon has to pay these people to come in and get their rings. And that's what it's all about. Now, all right, this topic here, Robbie, I'm coming to you first because this is your boy. And we didn't even know if he would be on WrestleMania. And on Raw, Bobby Lashley returned. So obviously his shoulder, whatever was injured, He's looking pretty good, pretty jacked. And, you know, in today's wrestling atmosphere, this type of stuff usually bombs. And I'm interested to see this match. Doesn't have to be long, but the segment on Raw actually went over. Omos the Giant, right? Very limited on what he could do. Bobby Lashley came in, and he's a Hulk in his own right, but he's dwarfed, obviously, by Omos. Robbie, the crowd was kind of hot for the way they set this match up, and I know it's nothing spectacular.
Yeah.
Lashley defended the WWE Championship successfully last year at Mania, which is a surprise moment. A lot of us thought he was going to lose it. I'm just happy he's on the card. He's going to get a payday. Bobby Lashley's your boy. Go.
I love that Bobby Lashley is on the WrestleMania card. You know how I feel about the big Hoss fights. You know, I'm definitely not like the indie AEW style big fan. I also don't like just giant dudes hitting each other. But Bobby Lashley is one of the most interesting and entertaining guys in the entire company. I think he's just so unique. He's such a freak of nature that I expect to see him do some absolute crazy things during this match. I wasn't on the predictions. I don't know what you guys picked. I definitely pick Bobby Lashley going over Omos just because I don't really see Omos right now. I think is at the peak of where he can possibly be. And I don't really think they have plans to push him as a champion. And since Lashley had to drop that title, I think it just makes the most sense for him to kind of get this little bit of a notch in his belt. Obviously, 10 years from now, no one's going to know who Omos was or care. But I think in the moment, I think this is going to do well for Lashley. And I hope it sets him up for something big because like you said, dude, I love me some Bobby Lashley.
Jargo, do I dare say this? And I don't even know MVP status. Is MVP going to be Omos's mouthpiece and screw over Bobby Lashley?
That's kind of where
I had to. I mean, a lot of people were thinking it.
That's kind of where I'm leaning because Omos clearly needs some kind of a mouthpiece, and it seems to me like Bobby Lashley is ready for a babyface run, and I don't think you can do a Bobby Lashley babyface run with MVP. I think that you've got to break Bobby Lashley away, but MVP has absolutely earned his spot on TV if you're going to keep him around. And it makes sense inside of the booking too, because neither one of these guys can really afford a clean loss at this point. I think we do some business here, and this is just kind of the beginning of the story.
Yep. And then, again, it's 2 nights of WrestleMania. It's good to have little filler matches like this, and it doesn't have to be that long, and this one won't be. Aaron, thoughts on this?
I'm just happy for Bobby Lashley that he got cleared in time to get that WrestleMania payday. And I do think that there's a possibility Omos will win with an MVP heel turn. It makes sense, but I did predict Bobby Lashley to win. Would not shock me either way. If the Omos push ends at WrestleMania, not going to be surprised, and wouldn't shock me either if they keep it going and drag it out for as long as they can. So we'll see what happens. But if Omos wins, I definitely see that being due to a heel turn from MVP and Bobby Lashley continues by himself as a babyface. But yeah, it'll be a nice little match. The two big guys clashing, and keep it short. It'll be fine.
I feel like part of the problem is if Omos wins, where does he go from there?
That's my point too. Absolutely.
It has to be to the title, right? And he is not ready for that spot.
Right. I'm kind of over Omos.
Yeah, he was an attraction. He was a fun bodyguard, but as just a standard, it's kind of like, as much as I loved Kane, it was kind of at a certain point after Kane took his mask off and all of a sudden he's coming out every single week. It's not like, oh my God, it's Kane. It's, oh, hey, cool. It's Kane.
Kane could talk. Kane had better matches.
Sure. No, I'm not saying that he's on the level of Kane in skill. I'm just saying that the mystique and the awe of it fades after a while. Kane could reinvent himself and, he was able to create more characters that had life. I feel like I don't know how much higher Omos goes than this. A WrestleMania match with Bobby Lashley. I feel that is the crown on his career right now.
Unless
probably will be.
Unless the plan is for Brock Lesnar to go over Roman Reigns and you need a heel challenger for Brock Lesnar to destroy. I mean, Brock being the underdog babyface versus a heel Omos, I could see where that could be appealing, and maybe that's kind of the death of Omos's push.
I don't ever
getting destroyed by
underdog.
Exactly. That's why it's
Yeah.
intriguing, right? Because how often do you see Brock as an underdog babyface?
Remember when Kane used to use the voice for thing, the story?
Suck
That
it.
that was classic right there.
But it
Undertaker
didn't
said
DX,
that.
dude.
Didn't the Undertaker say his angle with Kane, like the early, I was like the best storytelling ever in wrestling recently?
I would agree with him. I would
It
absolutely
was-
agree with him.
It was
That
damn
to me,
good.
when I was flipping back between USA and TNT back in the day, if Undertaker, Paul Bearer, or Kane or any of that stuff was ever on, I would never change it. I wouldn't even change it if Sting came from the rafters. I was more interested in that than anything else.
Now, before we move on, Aaron, I saw the first super chat come in. Anything interesting?
Hamp Cano sent in $2. Thank you, Hamp. Says, I read that they're only building Omos for Gable Steveson.
Oh yeah, that's a guy they're going to push early, but
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. Gable Steveson comes in and he's the one that eventually beats Omos. Could happen, but I still feel like Lashley should beat Omos, and let's move on here.
Well, and didn't Gable Stevenson kind of let out of the bag that he is going to be involved in WrestleMania in one way, shape, or form? So
Yeah,
I'm kind of looking at Gable Stevenson to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
well, that's on SmackDown.
Well, I mean, it's still part of WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
well, we'll know in a few days if he's going to make his debut. I think that we'll see him on Monday Night Raw after, because they got to have a few tricks up their sleeve for that show. It really hasn't been that good the last few years. Remember, it was always exciting, Raw after Mania. So hopefully this year it kind of gets back to how it used to be.
I agree.
We'll see. Now, we'll move on here, and this is a little curveball topic. We have mid-card titles still in WWE, believe it or not. Gentlemen, they lose all the time. Like, they lose to guys that aren't even competing for those titles, and it's strange. WWE, they love to have their non-title matches and have the champions always lose. But who are our mid-card champions right now? I know Ricochet is the Intercontinental champion, correct? And
Probably.
Finn Balor is the U.S. champion. And it's Finn Balor. Like, what disrespect. It's especially him. Jargo, I'll come over to you first. Like, what the hell, man?
Well, I mean, I had kind of thought, and maybe I missed the memo, maybe this is happening, but I had kind of thought we were going to get Priest versus Balor at WrestleMania, right? Like, is that match not happening at WrestleMania? Because it sure seems to me like that's a missed opportunity to do, like, if you're doing this kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing with Damian Priest, okay, cool. Well, then you do the Jekyll and Hyde thing with Finn Balor too. So you miss out on the demon entrance at WrestleMania, where it should be really, really cool. And you can use that footage like everywhere as you're trying to sell the product. Is that match not happening? What are we doing here?
Well, okay, so look at the big major titles. They're going to be unified, and we don't know how long that whoever wins them is going to have both of them. Could that be their opportunity for Raw and SmackDown to make those other titles finally a little more meaningful?
Sure, but they won't.
But what, you don't think?
No.
Nobody's there that like to finally convince them, hey guys, you got these titles. Remember when Mr. Perfect was the Intercontinental champion and it meant something?
If you want to make the Intercontinental Championship relevant, then you have to put it on The Miz. I mean, like, that's the only time the Intercontinental Championship is relevant, is when The Miz is walking around with it, because one way or another, The Miz makes that championship relevant. And then the US title is just...
They could fix all these titles super easy, though. Like,
Go ahead.
they need to do it like they did it back in the day. Guess what? If you want to be world champion, you need to prove your worth. You got to win matches. Then you got to qualify, and then you got to win a mid-card title and hold it and make an impact. And then you gradually start saying, hey, I want this title. You have a little blow-off match that you lose clean to the new champion. That feud's over. It doesn't hurt you because you're on fire. And then you go for the title. People have seen you win. People have seen you be a champion. They want to see you progress because it's like, I don't know, a story arc.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you make the titles relevant. But just hot potatoing these titles and making it not meaning anything, and then just people just like jumping through all this stuff and instantly getting world title shots. I mean, that's what's devalued the mid-card titles. Is, you know why Mr. Perfect was that champion? Do you know why, like, some of these greats like Shawn Michaels held these belts? Because Shawn Michaels was going to go on to be a world champion. That was their plans with him. Mr. Perfect, before he got hurt, was going to be world champion. So that he got those titles. That was an honor. You don't have that anymore.
But Mr.
DDP.
Perfect also wouldn't show up on Monday Night Raw and do a job to Austin Theory for no apparent damn reason.
That's got to stop if these titles are going to mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, DDP was the U.S. champ, then he became WCW champ. Chris Jericho, Intercontinental champion. I know they did that whole China thing. He became the first undisputed champion. Any other great examples of where that really worked well back in the day? I mean, we could say Ultimate Warrior.
Austin,
I know people hate him, but like he appealed to kids back then, and he was one of those guys.
I think Robbie's exactly right. I mean, Austin, The Rock, Hunter. I mean, like
Bret Hart.
Yeah, Bret Hart. Like,
the whole Hart
but
family,
really
dude.
through like the early 2000s, that was kind of the formula, and then they just blew it all to hell.
Yeah,
and you're exactly right too, Virtue. Where the champion never seems to win matches anymore. It's like once you win the Intercontinental Championship, your match that's not for the title between now and then, and it's just it's so formulaic. It's just ridiculous.
They had the Intercontinental Champion face the WWE Champion at one point.
I could not believe.
Not anymore.
I could not believe they jobbed out Ricochet to Austin Theory Monday.
That was terrible.
I just could not believe it.
You really couldn't believe it, though. They booked Ricochet off. Like, I was a fan of Ricochet.
I couldn't believe they put the title on Ricochet.
Agreed. But, I mean, still, you have the Intercontinental Champion showing up on Monday Night Raw when he's a SmackDown contracted wrestler, so that should be a big deal to begin with. And he's taking on, like, the lowest guy on the totem pole in Austin Theory. So it's like, oh, cool. A showcase for the Intercontinental Champion and Ricochet, and maybe you'll tune into Fox because you want to see Ricochet if you only watch Monday Night Raw.
Hell, they almost should have made that an IC title match, had Austin Theory win it, and then the Pat McAfee match could be for the Intercontinental title. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah, I mean, I at this point, I expect, like Finn Balor to show up over on SmackDown and, lose a match to Ibar. Like, what the hell are we doing?
Yep. Aaron, I know a super chat came in. Any thoughts on this?
Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Walter. Says they missed the opportunity. Should have done a Razor Ramon Memorial ladder match for the IC title, and the old title should be hanging. You know what? You're right on that. Yeah. Ricochet is a ladder match specialist too. That would have made sense, but nope, nothing with Ricochet. They might add something last minute. Something happens in the Battle Royal, and they set up a match for the kickoff, but both titles mean absolutely nothing at this point, and they might as well just merge the titles because they're less than props at this point. They're not even the slightest bit meaningful at this point.
They're as valuable as the 24/7 title.
The 24/7 title might be more valuable. It's
you know
like,
what?
And that's why. But that's why the Intercontinental Championship means something when the Miz has it.
Yeah.
Because Miz values the title, so you value the title.
Right.
If the talent doesn't value the titles, then there's no way that the viewer is going to. But there's certain guys, like Cody has that appeal with the Intercontinental Championship if he would bring back the original white strap again. Miz has that kind of credibility with the Intercontinental Championship. Jericho has that kind of credence with the Intercontinental Championship. But if the talent doesn't value the title, there's no way the viewer is going to give a damn about the title either.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that could have been something good for one of the Usos, like Jay, to have. Like if they were going to kind of not split them up, but like make them more of singles wrestlers. And here we go, riding it away with Ricochet. But it is what it is. Ready to move on. Got to get the AEW fix in, guys. So last night, it's WrestleMania week, and of course they can't even pop a million. But I'm not going to pick on AEW because Toni Storm debuted on Dynamite. And the thing is, like, I was looking at tweets, and people were like, yeah, she didn't seem to get too big of a pop, and people were on their phones. And someone else tweeted the fans were probably checking out her OnlyFans account there as she was making her debut. So here we are. All right, remember, she wasn't happy. She was getting pies and faces, whatever was going on over on SmackDown and WWE. She's in AEW. Jargo, I'll come back over to you because you're all about that AEW women's division growing. This is an opportunity for that, yay or nay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Toni Storm's a great signing for AEW, and immediately she seems to have more credence than 90% of the rest of the division. So, I mean, at this point, I mean, we don't even know who all is going to be in this Owen Hart tournament, but I'm already looking at Toni Storm to win it, especially the way that they were putting over that she already won the Cinderella tournament and she already won the Stardom version of the G1 as well. So they're making it out that she's a good tournament wrestler. We obviously saw that inside of the Mae Young Classic, where she also won that tournament. So, I mean, it only makes sense to me that you push her to the freaking moon and get her in a championship match, whether it be against Jade Cargill or against Thunder Rosa. Either one seems like a good match to me.
Jade Cargill.
It's that easy, just like want to just leave, quit, and then I'm sure she was she like officially released. Did she have to serve the 90 days? No compete. Like, has it been that long already? God, this 90 days just flies by anymore. And I just wonder if that's a fact of Tony Khan bringing in so many wrestlers. There's always a wrestler to come in. Next thing I know, 90 days pass, and the next one that's eligible comes in. Robbie, I don't know. I know you don't keep up with it as much, but man, it doesn't seem like that even matters anymore. The little no compete by WWE.
I would agree with that. I will say it's good that Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa finally have a third person who's at least worthy to share a ring with them, just because the rest of the division is like so weak. I mean, I also want to pump the brakes when people say this is like a game-changing signing. If she's booked correctly, then sure. But they said Ruby Soho is going to be a game changer, and I don't think she's been on main TV in quite a while. So, the collection of the toys is definitely something that happens, but I think a lot of them just get lost. I think Storm has a lot more star potential than Ruby Soho does. So hopefully she'll be better off. But
I mean, is there anything that you grade Ruby Soho higher than Toni Storm on? Because I feel like all around, I feel like Toni Storm is just like heads and tails above Ruby Soho.
Right. But what I'm saying is I haven't seen from Tony Khan consistency with a lot of his signings. Some of them do well, but then you guys have you have Malachi Black, you have Miro. I mean, they really haven't done anything since coming over. The only real notable people to come from WWE and succeed are Jericho and Daniel Bryan, right? I mean, that's pretty much okay.
But it's the big.
That's what I'm saying. But everyone else is just kind of you had all these guys that were constantly being like, oh my God, Vince is an idiot. He doesn't know how to use these people. In AEW, Miro and Aleister Black, they're going to be the biggest stars. And it's like, well, guess what? They're still exactly where they were on the other card because that's their place. I mean, I don't know. So I don't really have a lot of faith that Tony can book this well, but Tony Khan, that is. But I think Toni Storm is probably one of the best performers all around in that entire division at this point.
I agree. Aaron.
I agree with everything you guys said. I think Toni Storm has a lot of potential to be a major star for the women's division in AEW. But at the same time, you look at Ruby Soho and she has kind of fizzled out. She's not really doing much these days. I cannot remember the last time she was on Dynamite. I know she's been doing dark and whatnot, but she hasn't been on the main show in quite some time. And my concern is that 2 months from now, 3 months from now, Toni Storm will be on dark and we won't be hearing much about her. And that the next person that's cut from WWE will show up on Dynamite, and then they'll get the big fanfare and the push for 2 months. And it'll just be a never ending cycle instead of legitimately creating a superstar that transcends beyond the little bubble of AEW, a superstar that can appear on TV shows and be somebody who is an iconic persona. They really don't have too many people like that in AEW. They have great wrestlers, but do they really have any great stars? That's the question.
Well, I don't think they started off booking her well, because she went 10, 13 minutes with the Bunny, who hasn't been seen on TV in a year. When was the last time the Bunny won a match on TV? There is no way your new superstar that's a transcending signing should be going over 10 minutes with a massive jobber.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, on Dynamite, they were doing that a lot this week with the competitive matches between the guy who is a star and the guy who's not a star. And I know you have to build stars, but I feel like it's getting a little bit repetitive with these types of matches. Like I said this on Wednesday, WWE sometimes they do too much when it comes to star versus star. Sometimes it's good to have a squash match or have a star versus somebody who's not really a star, give them a little bit of a rub. But I feel like AEW every week does the star versus guy who's not a star. And, the guy who's not a star gets a rub or whatever. But I don't feel like in the end it's really going to matter. Like you look at CM Punk's match this week with Max Caster. Did it really do anything for Max Caster 10 years from now? Are we going to say, oh, that match with CM Punk, that put him on the map? I don't think so.
Yeah, the only one talking about that 10 years from now is going to be Max Caster, because that's literally going to be the cap on his career.
Oh, jeez.
He'll be wrapping that in the indies.
I mean, John Cena put him over this week. How about that?
He did. He gave him some props, and I am enjoying the freestyles. Like of the up and comer guys, Max Caster is one of the guys I like more with the rap battles and everything.
Did the AEW cult jump on that and say Cena's coming to AEW now?
No,
Okay.
but
They don't want him.
I think the thing with Max Caster is he needs to make everything look more like he's in a fight. Like everything just seems like almost too polished with Max Caster, to the point where you can't buy into it.
That's a good point. I mean, he's all gimmick right now, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of what I see when I see him. And it's not, I like controversial things being said, and I don't know if he can fully do that because they're all worried about sponsors and advertisers and whatnot. But nonetheless, we have like a double main event tonight, guys, and we're halfway through the show, and it's time to start the first half of it. Ready? Robbie.
Hi.
Triple H, his heart issues. Hopefully his health is going to be okay in general, but he cannot wrestle anymore. He is retired from in-ring action. So thoughts, we'll reflect on Triple H's career. Will we see? I mean, I'm sure he'll be on TV again at some point. The guy can still come out and cut promos. I think he's back to work in the office because I've seen clips here and there of him. They were checking out parts of the new building, and he was there with all the corporate people. Here's what I remember Triple H for, Robbie. And then you're the big Triple H fan, so you can elaborate on this. When he was that heel in the early 2000s, he was the guy that buried everybody that was the main champion. That's what Vince McMahon decided, right? Married Stephanie, the whole son-in-law, all that stuff. People, when you thought of Triple H, you thought they're not, your wrestler that you liked is not going to go over him. As he got older, he put everybody over.
Yeah.
And he even got, to me, the greatest work of all time. He did this NXT thing, and, people will say he did it because he wanted it to succeed. He wanted to get out of the office, man. He got to go do this thing for quite a long time. We are NXT, even though it's not what it used to be. And Mr. Tito would argue he never built any of his own main eventers. But what he did, the work that he did, signed up all the indie wrestlers. Now the burial guy, Triple H, is one of their heroes, the indie darling fan heroes, because he gave all those Ring of Honor people this other platform. And Triple H now going into the sunset, fans are going to look at him. I respect Triple H. You did awesome after you were wrestling. You gave us NXT. It was Vince McMahon's fault that we couldn't still have it the way you wanted to present it. Damn good work. Triple H got the fans to respect it, at least those diehard fans. Yeah. Because of a thing that got him out of the office to go do this NXT thing. Success or fail, whatever. He did it for quite some time. They were doing arenas WrestleMania weekend, right? At least, now granted, you could piggyback that off of, that was because it was WrestleMania weekend. But what do you think here, looking back at the game?
So yeah, Triple H, in my opinion, is the best wrestler ever. I think he was the best in-ring worker. I think he was the best promo. He had the best music. He had the best entrance. He had the best persona. He literally was just the best. And you could point to individuals. I could see that, the top of Hogan's career, Austin's popularity. I won't say that Triple H made as much money or drew as much money as those guys, but I don't think there's been any single wrestler who's ever been with the longevity of Triple H as consistent. He was always good. He was always reliable. I loved when he buried all of those people in the early 2000s. That was my favorite era in wrestling. I loved watching it happen in real time. And then he gets older, he takes on more responsibilities, and he creates NXT, which arguably to date was the best gathering of independent talent, some of the best storytelling that we've ever seen, some of the best match quality we've ever seen. Triple H actually made the blueprint that AEW still uses to this day. The only problem is they don't have Triple H, the mind, the cerebral assassin behind the scenes, making the correct decisions. But there was a time where NXT was the greatest and best wrestling show in wrestling, at least in the US. You could see some of those old New Japan stuff was awesome. I'll give anyone that. But for the United States, NXT was by far the best. So I think Triple H is an executive, as a performer, and just as a person, a father, just everything you know about this guy. He's professional and he's incredible. And like I said, my all-time favorite, I think the greatest ever do it. And I don't think there's enough words to give this man the props he deserves. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he has a long life.
He was a great heel because people wanted to see
The
him
best.
lose.
Yeah.
Like Jargo.
Well, I feel like no matter what I say now, I feel like I'm going to bury Hunter after that glowing review that Robbie gave him.
We need different opinions. Bury him.
Absolutely.
Tito will.
Because I like Triple H and everything, but I mean, I wouldn't go quite as far as Robbie did here. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with Hunter. Because I have a lot of respect for Hunter and the way that he has done things over the course of the years, even though I don't necessarily think that it was always right. Booker T and Sting. But, there's absolutely something to what Robbie was saying about NXT. I feel like Hunter is arguably the best number 2 that there's ever been in the business. He wasn't necessarily the guy that the promotion was being built around, but he was the guy that was feuding with the guy that the promotion was being built around. And he was that guy for a very long time while there was a lot of different guys on top. As far as the NXT stuff goes, I agree with Robbie completely. I mean, there was a period of time there where NXT was just on fire. And those shows, those takeover shows, 5 matches, 2.5 hours, and all 5 matches were just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Are some of the best pro wrestling shows of all time. I was at Takeover 1 in Chicago. I was at Takeover 2 in Chicago. Both absolutely awesome shows, great experiences. I wouldn't trade for anything. I agree with Adrian. He was never the guy. He was the guy that worked with the guy. Hunter might be the greatest number 2 of all time.
Yep. Aaron,
and we don't have those anymore
in Chicago.
No, we need a lot more of them. We absolutely do.
Yeah,
Virtue. We got Roman sitting by himself. So
Virtue, we were at 2 of the takeovers. We were in the takeover in Chicago and then the one in Toronto.
Yep. So would we have been at the same one that Jargo was at?
The one where Ciampa turned on Gargano?
No, that was 2017, right?
Oh, okay. So we weren't there.
That was the year before.
Gotcha. I just was wondering if I was in the same building as Jargo before I knew him.
So Takeover Chicago 2, that was the grudge match with Ciampa and Gargano.
See, it's been so long already because we've had this NXT 2.0. Now we can't. And they had so many of them. Now we literally have to go back and see. But anyway, Aaron, over to you. And I see the super chats rolling in now. We're talking about Triple H's in-ring career coming to an end.
Yeah, so I will get to those super chats. And we have a one from Hamp from earlier, which I'll get to in just a second. Just to sum it up, like in my opinion, he's a top tier heel, one of the best of all time. His feud with Austin, his feud with The Rock, those were all classics. And I know there's critics of him, and perhaps rightfully so. He did gain a lot of power marrying the boss's daughter, and maybe it was for the right reasons. Maybe he really did love her, but he certainly had a pretty safe spot in the company once he got with her. But in his defense, I think he was well on his way to being a top guy before he ever got with Stephanie. Going back, when he was still Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I thought he had a lot of potential to be a top guy. He had to change up the gimmick a little bit. He got with Shawn Michaels, and that's when he really started to shine. The stuff with the Nation in '98, great stuff. And I've always cited the ladder match with The Rock from SummerSlam '98. To me, that match was so good. I felt both guys when I watched that match, like these guys are going to be the future of the company. They just completely tore the house down in that ladder match. One of my all-time favorite matches from those guys. And he had so many great matches. He could do pretty much any type of match. He could do the Hell in a Cell match well. He could do the ladder match as well. He could do the no holds barred match as well. And his promos, yeah, we all make fun of him for taking the 20 minutes to go on and on and on. Some of them did drag, but all in all, he had so many great moments that I think it far outweighs the negative aspects of his career. And
Katie Vick.
He might be the greatest backstage politician of all time.
Well, yeah, and that's one
Him
of
and
the
Hogan.
criticisms of him.
And Nash.
Cena was pretty good too.
And the thing is, too, like people say, well, he didn't put over Booker T. He didn't put over Rob Van Dam. But at the end of the day, it's Vince McMahon's decision. I'm sure Triple H was not protesting it too much. But he did end up putting over a lot of guys that went on to be major stars, whether it was Batista or John Cena. Triple H did put over those guys. He did put over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Then he beat Sting. But again, that one I think was definitely a Vince call. Vince did not want the WCW guy going over the WWE guy. I think that's the bottom line.
Shoot, he put over Rollins at WrestleMania, right?
Absolutely. He put over a lot of guys.
Dude, those Shield matches, was it Evolution versus the Shield or something? Like, those were amazing.
And he could do the comedy, too, the stuff with DX, the first run, and then later with Shawn. He could do comedy. He could do pretty much anything that the situation called for the most part, very well. So he was very well-rounded. I wouldn't say he was the best wrestler of all time or even the best heel of all time, but I think he was really strong, maybe the number 2 and arguably in each category.
But who did it?
He told great stories in the ring without necessarily having to worry about wrestling. I know he had his same repertoire of moves. The Undertaker Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels as the referee. I mean, that was storytelling at its finest in the ring.
What heel, though, did it as well as Triple H for as long as Triple H did?
Good point.
Flair.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the 60s. Define,
people really
we'll go back to the 60s. I mean, yeah, but the thing was, Flair was still doing it in the 2000s.
See, the thing is, Triple H could be the cool heel, but he could also really be the heel that you despise. With Ric Flair, I always felt like no matter what he did, some people still cheered for the guy. Like, there were times Triple H came out and like he was universally booed. Ric Flair, he always had the cool factor. So there were times where people just would not boo the guy because he was so entertaining, being himself and being the limousine riding, jet flying son of a gun, and so on and so forth. So anyways, let's get to some of these super chats here. Thank you, guys. Walter Cruz sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Walter. Says, sucks to see somebody not be able to leave on their own terms. I respect the hell out of Triple H. I just wish he did not beat Booker T or Sting. Other than that, I'm fine with the way he's booked. I mean, did anybody think that those were the right decisions as far as booking goes?
Sting, yes. Booker T, no.
I just didn't like that angle that they did to set it up. Like, I think
the match with Sting sucked.
Yeah, the match with Sting was
and the NWO came out, but that's one of the last memories of like an agile Scott Hall coming down and doing something in the ring.
Yeah,
so
like
that.
I have mixed feelings on that one. I was at that WrestleMania and the match was pretty entertaining for the live crowd. NWO coming out there and DX. And again, being there live, it was fun. But then when Triple H won, I'm telling you, the energy of that crowd was just sucked out when Triple H got the 3 count. Like, people did not want that finish. And watching back on television, I hate that match. The commentary, the whole time they're just talking about WWF versus WCW. When Sting himself said in a promo on the Go Home show that this feud is not about WCW versus WWE. And then that's all the announcers talked about for the entire match.
That's what Vince was telling them in their ear to say.
Yeah, like JBL especially. That match was so annoying to watch on television. It was fun live, but I did not care for the finish nor the commentary for it.
I don't know, Ben. I okay, so here, I haven't had like a hot Robbie Vice take in a while.
Last week, didn't you?
Not like this.
Oh, okay.
outside of the Hulk Hogan feud, I think Sting has been insanely overrated his entire career.
Oh my God, I've said that in the past. And
Have you? Well,
but yeah,
I mean that. Don't get me wrong. That start, but outside of the match and how horrible the match went, with Nick Patrick and his fast count, I just feel like outside of that, Sting was always like good. I just feel like he was elevated to this icon status that I personally never understood.
I think his best work was when he didn't wrestle for a year and he was up in the rafters looking like the Crow.
Yeah, and also Booker T should have beat Triple H. That is the only time that I really felt that he used some serious backstage politicking, because Booker T was red hot at the time, and a rightful champion during that time frame.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the whole storyline, the people like you are not world champion, and
it was like not okay. Yeah, like some of that stuff you go watch. Like, I'll tell you what, I challenge anyone that's a wrestling fan, go look at some of the territory promos from like tapes from the 70s, and you'll just be like, oh my God, it is some awful, horrible things.
And you know what? You know what's funny? Like, people today say like, oh, fans from the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, like they had no moral values and they like all these offensive storylines. People despised that storyline back then. Like it did not go over well back then. People didn't like it then. People don't like it now.
Everyone was uncomfortable.
It was just a bad storyline. Anyways, that was one of the low points of Triple H's career, the few low points. Like I said,
losing the curtain call and taking all the heat, losing to the Warrior,
Katie Vick,
but perseverance. Look back at it now. He came back. He bounced back from all that.
Right. All right. Let's see here. Mr. Tito, former NoDQ columnist.
Is he announcing his return? Oh, not yet.
Not yet. He says, loved hearing Randy Orton burying NXT workers on Pat McAfee today. Proved to me for years that Triple H was weak at developmental talent or talent developmental. What do you guys think about that one? Do you think he's on the money there, or
a lot of the guys that went through Triple H are now sitting at the top of their respective companies. So I guess he technically took indie people and made them better. And he basically had really good material to work with, and he made masterpieces. He
gave the indie fans a platform, a bigger platform for their product.
Yeah, without Triple H, there would be no AEW. Without NXT, there would never be AEW.
Now, granted, that was supposed to churn out WrestleMania main eventers, and it really didn't. But he at least gave those indie fans, the AEW fans now, what they wanted.
Well, and to be fair, regarding the quote, because I have not heard it in full context, I don't know if Randy is talking about the current crop of NXT talent or just everybody who has come through NXT.
Well, he said guys that he has worked with. So but
that doesn't mean that Randy's not down at the Performance Center and gets into a ring with Grayson Waller.
But he likes Ciampa. Like, he's wanted to work with Ciampa.
Right.
So it's not.
And obviously, like, he likes Riddle. Riddle came up through the NXT system. Like, what I need a bit more clarification as far as what Randy meant in that comment.
Yep.
Why do birds fly out of Matt Riddle's feet? I just noticed that recently. I don't know, because I took some time off of wrestling.
Because it pops Vince McMahon and
psychedelics, bro.
In gorilla position.
I
see those birds, pal? That's good shit.
Growing up in my younger college years, I did many psychedelics, and I don't ever recall seeing birds flying out of someone's feet. So I guess I just didn't have the good stuff back then.
No, you did not. Not that I would know, but
tons more super chats there, and we got to get a roll on here. Triple H is taking over our show.
He is. So Hamp Connell sent in $5. Thank you, Hamp. And I'm going to read Hamp's other one here in just a second. It says, I feel like Booker T was put in that match because that's all they had. They never intended on him to win. All the top stars already had matches. I mean, you might.
I guess the point is, if Booker T wins that match, he would have also been considered a top star.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Hamp Connell sent in another $2 super chat, says, it seems they consider the NXT title to be number 2. This was from earlier, I guess, as far as the titles go after the WWE title and the Universal title.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it was. I don't think it is anymore.
Well, what would be the next title in WWE of importance after
the Intercontinental Championship?
You still think that's the case?
Yeah. Right, just because of the lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't think Ricochet kills that lineage? No, I'm just kidding.
No, because it is still it's still the same title, and this still
Is he the worst?
Are we
Intercontinental
throwing women's titles in there or just men's? Aaron.
Well, I mean, you could include women's if you
Because
want.
the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship would be right there too.
Right. But I feel like, I mean, when you have a championship that still has the lineage of, Ravishing Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig and, the Ultimate Warrior and on through the years.
Robbie's like, what? The Ultimate Warrior.
The Ultimate Warrior is a terrible human being. They should rename the Warrior Award the Shad Gaspard Award.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
Robbie, did you say that or Jargo? Didn't I know?
I mean,
I tweeted that out at some point.
Yeah, I've been on that for a while.
I think
too.
that's been pretty unanimous with everybody as far as
give it to somebody who was at least a decent human being.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Aaron, more super chats. We got main event part B here.
Yeah, Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Walter. He says, worst part of the Booker T match was how long he took to pin after the pedigree made Booker look so weak. That hurt the match even more. Yeah, that too. I remember that. That was one of the weakest matches of that WrestleMania. And, not to knock Triple H too much, but there were some misses. We're not going to just praise everything he ever did. Like some of the low points of various WrestleManias are just disappointing moments involved him, whether it was the Sting match or the Booker T match. The Randy Orton match at 25 didn't blow me away. The Jericho match that had to follow the Hogan Rock match and couldn't really live up to the main event spot.
I don't know if that's as much his fault, though, as it is following the Rock
that
and Hulk
Jericho
Hogan.
Triple H match was a damn good match, though. Just because the life was sucked out from the previous match, can't do anything about that.
Well, and
Right.
I think there was also that certain element of, is this going to turn into a shoot because these two guys hate each other?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We got Mr. Block Ice 22 with a $5 super chat. Thank you. Says, I mean, Triple H did his thing, but China, though, us outside looking in, that was crazy. Rock, Triple H, Nation of Domination versus DX was a great rivalry to me. Yeah, Triple H had a lot of great factions, and we touched on Evolution a little bit. He helped elevate Batista, Randy Orton. So no doubt he did his share of putting guys over for sure.
He always surrounded himself with the right people, whether it be the Click or
Shawn
DX or Evolution, or and eventually even, getting himself into the McMahon family. He's always surrounded himself with the right people.
Smart guy.
Yeah,
That's the business.
absolutely.
Yeah. And he did
Smartest
it.
man in wrestling. I remember that was his moniker for a while.
Yep.
Guy knew the right people to latch onto. And hey, he did his own thing and had people latching onto him. So there you go. Adrian sent in a €5 super chat regarding Triple H here. He says, who was Triple H's greatest rival out of The Rock, Mick Foley, or Shawn Michaels? Of those three, I would say The Rock too. I agree on that. I think The Rock and Triple H, like their box office numbers were at a level above everybody else. But I think my single favorite match would be the Shawn Michaels one, or the Cactus Jack one. But I think just as far as an actual storyline and just a lengthy feud back and forth, The Rock, that ladder match, the Iron Man match, like they were going back and forth for years. So yeah.
Well, and they were contemporaries, came in at the same time. I mean,
right.
Very, very similar career paths. It was just Hunter stuck around when Dwayne went Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I think we're caught up. Time for part 2 with the main.
All right. Well, the whole Royal Rumble turmoil with Shane McMahon and the dirt sheets quietly let go. And I remember when this is happening, Shane's, still representing WWE overseas, getting sponsorship deals with this and that. And when you're a McMahon, you're never gone from WWE. Now, granted, we're based on, this is a rumor right now that he's going to be there WrestleMania weekend. This just could be the red herring too. So people speculate it's Shane McMahon versus Rollins. So the Cody thing could happen. Maybe Shane comes out first and everybody's let down and then he introduces Cody. But let's see, Shane McMahon, according to the sheets, might be there WrestleMania weekend, at least to the capacity where he's backstage, where he got all this turmoil from Royal Rumble. Gentlemen, you're a McMahon. You're never gone. This quietly let go crap, I never bought it once. He left to go do his own thing years ago. That's when he left, right? And it's weird because he was even doing kind of what Nick Khan is doing now, with them getting the TV deals in Brazil, Mexico, and he still left the company. But since he's been back, he's been back. I mean, he's kind of been an attraction with, WrestleMania for his dad more so than anything. But Robbie Vice, it's WrestleMania weekend, and somehow the rumor mill has Shane McMahon's name on it again. I'm not surprised.
I mean, Shane McMahon's a bigger star than most. He has a lot going with his name. I don't think he's wrestling Seth Rollins. I'll just come out and say that I think there's like a 0% chance that he comes out as Seth Rollins' opponent. But I saw a lot of people on Twitter, and people are saying things like they're going to put Shane McMahon on, but they're not going to put a guy like Keith Lee on TV. And I think fans get confused. If you truly believe that someone like Keith Lee, Aleister Black, Miro, Ricochet, any of these guys are in the stratosphere of star power as Shane McMahon, you're sadly mistaken. You can like them better. You can objectively say they're better wrestlers. They will never be the star power of Shane McMahon because his dad is Vince McMahon, and you're in a company owned by McMahons. So when you have that surname, you are a bigger star than anyone that doesn't have your surname, not named Brock Lesnar at this year's WrestleMania.
Yep. And as far as I know, like Shane, outside of the WWE bubble, has been the most successful McMahon outside of the WWE bubble, because nobody else has done anything. Whether he's went and been CEO and then moved on from companies, I think he still has a very high success rate outside of WWE. And I know, like Mr. Tito will say, well, what has he done in WWE? I mean, he's still done a lot. I mentioned those TV deals abroad. He goes and represents WWE and lands them sponsorships. He must have some type of swag to put the WWE logo on other companies. Jargo, thoughts here? I know we've talked about Shane before on Virtue's Rage, I think, a couple times.
Well, I mean, number one, as far as the most successful McMahon outside of the WWE, his mom was on the president's cabinet. I mean, so there's that. I mean, I would consider that a little bit more successful, but
Donald Trump?
I just think Shane's being brought back basically to be an agent. I don't think that he's actually going to be appearing on air at WrestleMania. And if he does, I think it will be during the KO show with Stone Cold Steve Austin, because let's face it, nobody takes a stunner better than Shane McMahon.
That's a good point. Now, regarding your comment on Linda, I mean, she's not blood McMahon. She's marriage. Shane's got Vince's blood, so, whatever. Aaron. Oh, wait, Tito. Linda lost 2 Senate races badly.
She was still in line to be the president of the United States. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Anyways, Shane McMahon is probably just there for the Hall of Fame ceremony to celebrate the Undertaker's career. Linda McMahon is usually there. The whole McMahon family is there for WrestleMania weekend and the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. Now, could he show up at WrestleMania? Sure. You could probably find something for him to do. I saw a comment in the chat room. Maybe this will happen. Maybe Vince sends Shane out there to help Austin Theory against Pat McAfee, and it's kind of like a 2-on-1 handicap match. That would not shock me. I could see Shane doing something like that. I don't think he's going to be involved in the Seth Rollins match. Maybe that information purposely got leaked out just to throw people off the set.
Red herring. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, right now as we speak on Twitter, Seth Rollins is tweeting out all these animated graphics of various people. Shane McMahon was one of them, but he did not tweet anything about Cody Rhodes,
That's
which
true.
I think could be the clue that we're all looking for here. But there's still people that don't think Cody's going to show up. And
well, I mean, okay, let's just say that it is Cody. Okay. Does it matter? There's no heat here. There's no story here. Like,
it does matter.
The big jump from AEW to WWE.
That's the story.
But I
feel
feel like
EVP of AEW is now in WWE.
The first one to do it.
Completely unadvertised. So how many people are tuning in to see that? I mean, I feel like this has been handled so poorly if this is the Cody Rhodes thing.
Then maybe they hold Cody out.
I strongly disagree with that. I mean,
Well, here we go.
They're
You're going
not
past
talking,
mine, buddy.
I don't care. They're not talking about it, but it's the most talked about thing going into WrestleMania weekend is Cody Rhodes going to be there. They don't have to
Log
say
off
a single
Twitter.
thing. It doesn't matter. Okay, where else are you going to talk to
Nobody is
people?
talking about this because nobody cares. Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins doesn't even sound like it's going to be a good match. I don't expect this to be a good match. I expect it to be crap. Cody's matches are built around creative, and there's no creative.
I disagree. I think they're going to have him come in. They're going to have a serious match. They're going to have probably a 25-minute. It's probably going to be a technical, good, solid storytelling match, a WWE style match, and people are going to lose their shit because it's WrestleMania and you have an EVP from AEW likely bringing his exact same character.
I don't think that's a big deal. I
You
really don't.
But you're not the target audience for that.
The story, guys, is Stardust with that WrestleMania logo to piss all the marks off. It's
like you say, oh well, to the casual fan, this is a big deal. The casual fan's not watching AEW. We see the damn ratings. Like I don't think this is a big deal
about it. I'm probably the most casual wrestling viewer on this panel. And I will tell you that I really don't follow that much AEW. I watch it enough that I could participate in the conversations. But I think to me, this is the most intriguing match on the card. I mean, I'm if Cody Rhodes shows up, I think that's a bigger deal than whatever happens with Brock and Roman. I think it has more implications.
Virtue.
I think it look,
I can think that, but it's not, but that's okay. But to him, it could be.
But to me, it is.
That's fine.
And I'm gonna break the fourth wall a little bit. I'm gonna look right at both of you when I say this. I only care about what I care about, so whatever. But no, look, I get what you're saying. I think a lot of people are gonna share that opinion, Jargo. I think a lot of people are just gonna say, okay, whatever. And I think a lot of people are gonna agree with Virtue. They're gonna say, you know what? This match is gonna be one of the biggest things we've ever seen. But if it's Cody Rhodes and he's presented like AEW EVP Cody Rhodes, to me as a story-driven wrestling fan, I think that's the coolest thing that's going to happen at WrestleMania.
I actually agree. I've been advocating for Stardust because it's the WWE thing to do.
I don't care if it's Stardust either.
But,
I mean, it's
if it's like you say, if it's EVP type Cody Rhodes, he comes out and goes over Rollins. It's like, we gave you all those wrestlers. We got Cody back over here, and he's a bigger deal than he ever was. Oh, thanks for boosting him up over there a little bit so we could do this.
The problem is
what you could do put a mid-card title on Cody Rhodes, let him
Intercontinental title.
Exactly, and then you make it relevant. He doesn't need to be world champion at this point.
Yeah,
I think you bring him in
champion in AEW.
Right.
Why don't you do the same thing in WWE? But then, pal,
and guess what?
We
though?
got you.
If you make him a strong mid-card champion over the next good while, if something happens where Lesnar gets hurt or Roman has to take time off again, you now have someone you've built up that has star power, that has controversy surrounding him, that people are going to talk about, that you can throw in that main event, and people are going to either want to A, see him win, or B, see, is Vince really going to let this guy who turned traitor beat one of his top guys for a championship? I just think it creates a really cool meta story for story-driven wrestling fans out there. It's not for everyone, but for me, that's what I think is the most exciting thing that can happen from this.
Report Card Radio is like Stardust versus Seth would be a dud. Dude, the only reason why that would be cool to happen is because then Stardust would have the best entrance at WrestleMania. Somebody that wasn't even advertised.
He's going to show the WrestleMania logo with his hands. Do it again.
Yeah, and they probably would have the big stars come down. You know, you saw the set starting to show. I'm just telling you, that's such the WWE way to do something like that. But, Robbie, I'm totally on board with if Cody is here. Part of me still thinks this is, we'll see him when we see him. I'll believe it when we see it.
Right.
It could be, let's save him for after WrestleMania. But the whole let's represent what he was in AEW, boom, put him right in the middle here at WWE. If I say, if the whole Stardust thing was just a big fantasy and people like, Virtue, you were wrong, you think I'm going to be complaining if he was EVP Cody Rhodes?
Well, just imagine Virtue. He beat Seth Rollins in a 20-minute, 25-minute, just awesome match that with a lot of
Seth is good with that.
And Seth is good with that. And then he can cut a promo. He can have a heartfelt Dusty style promo about coming home or whatever. People are going to cheer for that. People, in the crowd. They're going to go crazy for that. And you have at least a 2-month period where they can book him correctly and make him a mid-card standard for the company that can not only show the newcomers what to do, but he's a name that people will recognize, and it'll bring money to the company.
I feel Jarg was going to throw his headset down and walk away.
We shall see what is going to happen. I just think you are incredibly wrong.
Dude, I'm always wrong. I'm totally fine with being wrong.
No, I don't think that Cody going back to WWE is a big deal. I think that Cody's star power is going to be basically the size of the Miz. And I agree with what you're saying about as far as if you presented him as EVP Cody Rhodes. The problem is they will not do that, because in order to do that, they would have to talk about AEW. And if you talk about AEW, you're putting over AEW, and Vince McMahon is not going to allow that to happen.
Real quick, before you jump in, so you're saying his star power cap is the only guy that can bring credibility back to the mid-card titles is the Miz, which is what you said, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So his star power is going to be one of two people who could actually elevate a mid-card title. I think that's a huge pickup for WWE.
Absolutely. I do not think in any way, shape, or form that Cody Rhodes is a main event talent in any professional wrestling company in the world. I feel like he is a mid-card champion. And if that's great, they need those guys. I just think that's Cody. He is the top of the second tier.
Let's put a pin in this. We're going to see it this weekend. Jargo, in 2 months, either on the review or I'll jump on something with you and Virtue. We should do an evaluation of Cody's transition to WWE, and we'll say if it's a success or fail. I'll be the first to admit if it doesn't work and that I was wrong. But I think it would be fun over the next 60 days if he does come out. We'll just go back and say, okay, this is what happened. Was it a big deal or not? And maybe we could even ask NoDQ Galaxy, to chip in and chime in and give us their opinions on that.
Robbie, and I said all along, he's going to come back. He's going to go over people like Rollins and that, and he's going to be fed to Roman, and he's going to sign off on it. You pay me this much money. Hey, I'm a professional wrestler. I'll
give my wife a cooking show, and I don't give a shit.
After 2 years, I could leave this company and go do something else.
Yeah.
He's going to be fed to Roman. If he is indeed coming back to WWE, he's going to be built to be fed to Roman. That's my gut feeling. Aaron?
Be funny if we did all this discussion and he just doesn't show up.
Oh, he shows back up on Dynamite and he's laughing. Him and Tony Khan.
Well, and I think the other thing that is really, really risky if you debut him at WrestleMania or the Raw after Mania, which we assume he's going to debut at one of those two shows, you are dealing with the smartest of smart mark WWE crowds, right? Those are the same fans that were booing him out of every AEW arena. So I'm very curious how the fans are going to react to Cody, and who's going to be the baby face in this match? Who's going to be the heel in this match? And do they even know going in, or is it going to depend on how Cody is received by that crowd?
Jargo, the comparison I can make, the closest one I can make to at least, is X-Pac when he came back to WWE from WCW. Now, when he came back, that was a big deal. Was it as big of a deal as Stone Cold Steve Austin? No, but to wrestling fans, that was symbolically a huge moment when he came back. And he did not come back as the 1, 2, 3 kid. He came back as X-Pac. He was like his NWO six-pack persona, and that was an epic moment. That was one of the coolest returns of all time.
That's a good example.
But without the context and without the history, does that make sense for the Cody Rhodes character as we have known him over the last couple of years? They got to do it right.
Like, I think a lot of us are concerned that Cody Rhodes is going to be poorly treated. And if he's poorly treated, then the thing is going to fall flat on its face.
I don't think they will.
They got to go big with this.
You're looking at this. So if they treat him poorly, that ruins their chances of future guys wanting to make that trip. And guess who they want in the next 2 years? Guess who Vince will have in 2 years is MJF. He's going to get MJF. He will.
Or he's going to make Tony Khan overpay for him to keep him.
I don't even think at this point that's an option. I think Vince will. I think he will get MJF, and and he's not. And Vince is making some of these decisions. Nick Khan is the one running the company, and I think what's best for business is to bring Cody in and let him do his thing and treat him good. And then guess what? You slowly start siphoning, because then they don't even have to put money into developing these guys. They can literally just use AEW as a farm system. They could use it as what they used NXT for. you know,
They're in
and they'll be,
cahoots. No.
Vince
McMahon
yeah,
is secretly funding it,
Well, I
not
mean,
Shaq.
they do need a new farm system now that Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor.
right.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got a
That's
couple more super chats,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap this up here. I know Robbie's got to get going here.
Yeah, I gotta get going quick.
So Hamp sent in a $2 super chat, says, I still think they will tease us first like at WrestleMania 34. What was 34 that he's talking about?
Dude, the numbers just are blurred.
I mean, I'm thinking of like when the New Day were going to come out for that ladder match, but instead it was the Hardys. Maybe he meant 33, but I'm not even sure what he's talking about with 34. Man,
That might be what he's talking about is the Hardy swerve.
I don't even remember like what was a swerve at 34, but yeah. Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Walter. Says, hey, we still have time. Make that Razor Ramon IC ladder memorial match at Backlash. That's WrestleMania Backlash, by the way. Have Cody win the title, instant credibility, and title elevation. I mean, I think he should be going for the world title, but that's just me personally. Oh, apparently it was when Elias came out instead of Undertaker at WrestleMania 34. Man, I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we're caught up now, Virtue. I guess we can go to the plugs.
Another great show. All right. We'll do our plugs. So, Jargo, welcome back this week.
We got one more from Hamp.
Dark.
Hamp Kano with a $5 super chat says, if Vince ruins Cody, I will forever lose my faith. How many times have I heard that before, by the way? And he says, and no, I'm not talking about when I'm talking about when Elias came out and Cena beat him. Then we saw The Undertaker. Yeah. I forgot about that. Anyways, I hear that all the time. People say, well, if this happens, I'm done. I lose my faith. Like, you keep watching. So it is what it is.
Happens. All right. Plugs, Jargo.
Well, I would just like to point out that, behind every pessimist is a disappointed optimist. And that's a direct result of WWE booking. So if I'm down on Cody, it's because it's the WWE.
Yeah.
Keep up with me across social media platforms at NotJargo. Of course, MichaelJargo.com. And we will be off to Indianapolis in just a couple of weeks. So looking forward to that and looking back to getting back with you guys whenever I can.
All righty. Thanks for being on. Robbie Vice, another Virtue guy.
That's true. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter if you want. I don't really care anymore at the Robbie Vice. Mostly just talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, how much I hate the Cleveland Browns, how I don't understand the Cleveland Guardians and NBA stuff, but I do comment on wrestling and I will say things are stupid when I see it. So give me a follow. And thanks to everyone who participated in the poll that said I am the most favorite, best ever panelist on the review. It's exactly what I took from the 58% or 60% that said they wanted to keep seeing me. That just tells me that every single person wants to see me all the time. And I thank all of you for wanting that.
Nice. Thanks for being on, Aaron Rift.
Just check out the other videos. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. NoDQ.com/merch. Use the code MANIA for 25% off. And that's it. Virtue, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up.
Follow me on Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue, and I will see you late Sunday night on Twitter when Roman Reigns is the all-time champion. What's the new title going to be? The Universal WWE Championship, the WWE Universal Unified, whatever it is. He's going to hold them both up, and the era of Roman will continue. For Robbie Vice, for Jargo, and for Aaron, I am Virtue. Happy WrestleMania weekend coming up. We'll see you next time so we can talk about it.